Helen debated her options as she approached her building. Even if Ian was armed, it had to be better to keep driving rather than give up without a fight. "Don't even think about it." Ian pressed the muzzle of the gun hard into her side. "Park and cut the engine," he demanded. "We'll finish this inside." She couldn't do it. If he got her into the apartment, there was no telling what he would do to her. They'd broken up 6 months ago, the day after he'd manhandled her. He'd come to see her in the hospital straight out of jail. She hadn't pressed charges, but she'd made it clear they were through. Ian had never accepted her decision. Instead, he'd launched a pathetic campaign to win her back. She'd been forced to file the restraining order just to get some peace, some distance, for all the good that did. "Ian, just go. Take the car," she suggested. "This isn't good for either of us." Ian jabbed the gun into her again, harder this time. "Give me the keys." She obeyed, biding her time, as anger burned away the leading edge of fear. Yes, he knew how to use the weapon in his hand, but he didn't know her not anymore. She was done being quiet about the crap he kept pulling. For weeks, she'd been dealing with the threats via text messages, standing back and taking it as he trailed around the base just outside the legal boundary. "Why can't you move on?" she demanded. "Because you are mine." "I could have been." Ignoring the gun, she twisted in the seat, buying time for someone to come along. She hoped Alex had picked up on her message, rather than believe she'd flaked out on him. "There was a time when that's all I wanted, Ian." He scowled. "You're lying." "I'm not." For a few weeks, she'd thought she'd hit the jackpot with Ian. He'd been attentive and interesting, until his true colors started to show through in random bursts of temper and his tendency to overdrink. She drew on the memories of their first few dates, hoping to convince him. "Remember when we went to the tennis tournament?" "Yeah." It had been one of their earliest and best dates. "I came home and looked up travel packages to Wimbledon." "You did?" "I did," she said, trying to smile when she wanted to punch him in the face. "You never said anything," Ian said, wary. "I was afraid it would seem too clingy." "No, that would have been perfect." His eyes flared with renewed hope. "Next year?" he said. The gun lowered as he considered it. "Let's go upstairs and order tickets for the Open next month. We can get back on track." The sudden shift in his expression and voice caught her off guard. Did he really believe holding her at gunpoint would fix everything? "Maybe not tonight, Ian." "You're backing out." The gun came back up. "I knew you were lying." His bitter shout in the confined space of her car hurt her ears. Instinctively, she covered her ears and ducked away. Ian swore. "Get out!" he ordered, his voice a violent snarl. "We're taking this upstairs." Alex watched Helen's car from the shadow of the scrubby evergreen tree at the corner of her building. She'd parked under a streetlight, and he could see her talking with someone in the back seat. The cops hadn't made an appearance yet, and Alex wasn't sure if he should create a disturbance to get their attention or be grateful. Nothing had happened. Yet he amended. She opened the car door, and the interior light flashed on someone holding a gun on her. As the rear door opened as well, Alex saw it was her ex, Ian. Not surprised, he made this move while the car could still give her shelter. If he waited until they were closer, Ian could grab her and use her as a hostage or shield. She'd been through enough with this jerk, and Alex knew how he'd react if the ex touched her again. He had no qualms about shooting the idiot, but he'd rather not do it with Helen in the crossfire. Stepping out of the shadows, he kept his gun lowered and tucked behind him. "Helen," he called out, striding forward. "Glad I caught you." Startled, her ex froze, but Helen dashed toward him. "Alex!" What a surprise. "Yeah, I lost my phone," he said. "Thought maybe." His improvisation was cut short by a gunshot. A chunk of grass near his feet exploded. "That's your only warning," Ian shouted, his voice shrill. He aimed his gun at Helen. "Get out of here!" She shifted toward Alex. "Don't move!" Ian snapped. "We're not done here." Helen raised her hands. "I'm not moving, Ian." Alex let loose a string of curses in his head. She was exposed too far from the car and not yet close enough to him. "But we are done," she said. Her words, calm and resolute, infuriated her ex. "No." He started around the car. "You're mine." "Nice way to make your point," Alex said, clinging to his fraying composure. "Shut up," Ian snarled. "I made one mistake and nearly tore my arm off," she finished for him, shifting away from Ian. "I've apologized 1,000 times." Alex tried to creep closer, even as she kept shifting just out of his reach. 3 times she corrected. "Make it 4, he argued. "I'm sorry." She cocked her head, her hair spilling to the side. An apology loses a little something when you're holding a weapon. To Alex's shock, her ex lowered the gun. "I'm sorry, Helen. I am. I want you back. I'm going crazy without you." Ian, whatever response she might have given, was cut short by the arrival of the police. 2 cruisers pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. Alex lunged for Helen, but he was a half step too far away. Ian caught her and pulled her close. As the police ordered Ian to surrender his gun, the man hustled to put a parked car at his back and the gun to Helen's head. Alex's world slipped into silence as he retreated into the shadows, his focus solely on saving Helen. Even with the gun out of her sight, she could feel the heat from the barrel at her temple. Helen watched Alex fade into the darkness. She wondered that the police didn't call him out. They were surely distracted by the more obvious threat of a gun-wielding Ian. The only good news was they were still outside and not trapped in her apartment. She wanted to shout at the police that he was violating a restraining order, but the legalities weren't going to get her out of this. "Ian, this is silly," she said breezily when she'd much rather be crying. "Quiet." The arms slanted over her chest, squeezed hard. "I'm taking her upstairs." "I don't want to go upstairs," she stated, in case that wasn't clear to the 4 policemen. Ian squeezed her again. He addressed the police officers in a reasonable tone that terrified her. "We're okay," he said, just working out a misunderstanding. "Let her go, and we'll all talk it out." While Ian wheedled and whined at the cops about the situation, she caught a glimpse of Alex moving fast and low to a point somewhere behind them. She didn't know what he had in mind, but she knew he wasn't leaving. That thought bolstered her courage. "Let me go, Ian." Whatever Alex had in mind, she didn't intend to be standing here like a human shield when all hell broke loose. And it would. Ian wasn't sane right now, and the cause didn't really matter. Her ex started shouting again, his hard words and voice abrasive against her ear. When he moved the gun away from her head to aim it at the police, she made her move, stomping on the top of his foot. He yelped in pain, and his grip on her loosened enough for her to twist away. She tripped, dropped to her hands and knees, and crawled only to feel Ian's grip on her ankle, his fingers digging in as he tried to drag her back. She kicked and struggled against him until suddenly she was free and scrambling up to the cool, damp grass, well away from the parking lot. Voices ricocheted all around her, too many to sort out. Watching, she realized Ian had let her go because Alex had tackled him. The police soon had Ian in cuffs and were taking notes as Alex talked. She should get up and add her statement to Alex's. She couldn't muster the energy. She just needed another minute to catch her breath. "That was a nice move," Alex said, approaching slowly. She looked up into his handsome face and felt tears threatening to spill over. "Thanks. You've scraped your knee," he pointed out. "Worth it," she said. Together, they watched the police load Ian none too gently into the back of a cruiser. I'm hungry. You want a pizza? He asked as the one car drove away. A laugh sputtered out of her before she could stifle it. Alex slipped an arm around her shoulders and she burrowed into the offered comfort. Thanks, she repeated, reveling in the simple joy of being alive. With him, Alex didn't miss the way she kept his hand in both of hers while the officers took her statement. It felt good to give her tangible support. I may have to sell my car, she said when they were alone. I can't believe he was hiding in there. He pulled her into a hug when she shivered. We'll have it detailed. He kissed the top of her head. Have them use this fragrance. What fragrance? She gazed up at him. Your shampoo or whatever. Suddenly uncomfortable, he floundered. It's, fresh and... She pushed up onto her toes and kissed his cheek. Thanks, Alex. You've said that he reminded her. This time it was for liking my hair. She looked around. Where's your car? I left it near the complex office. Seemed better than racing in on your tail and making the situation worse. I'm glad you didn't write me off as a flake. You never. He drew her into a hug. I called in too many favors for this date to let someone else horn in. To his pleasure, she chuckled. The PT line on the phone was genius, he said. I'm glad you caught the reference. This date might not have gone according to his plan, but he wasn't leaving until they made plans for a better second attempt. Can I walk you up? He said. You should clean that scrape. But you kissed it and made it all better. He'd kissed it to keep from scooping her into his arms and running off with her. Somewhere well out of the reach of a deranged ex-boyfriend. Tahiti, maybe. Come on upstairs. She turned his hand over her fingertip, tracing the knuckles he'd chewed up when he tackled her ex. She raised his hand to her lips, kissed him. You need a little work, too. She had no idea about the needs surging through his system. He needed her worried that he needed her too much. Since the moment they'd met, he'd wanted to know her better. This wasn't the night to angle for more, he reminded himself. He'd made her a promise that he wouldn't try anything. He'd set this up to reconnect, to either confirm or deny why he couldn't get her out of his mind. I wanted to ask you out, she said, unlocking her door. When we were in PT? I'm glad you arranged to meet me tonight. I'm sorry it turned into the worst blind date in history, but I'm glad. I've had worse. He followed her inside. She'd left a light on near the couch, and it cast a soft glow over a room that looked comfortable without being too feminine or fussy. I don't believe you, she said, reaching to lock the door behind him. Well, at this point, if I mentioned rescuing a date and her dog from a flood, it would only sound like bragging, he teased. Her smile set his heart racing. That can't be true. No. He stepped closer, drawn to that smile, like a moth to flame. He was willing to risk the burns just to get closer to her heat and light. You're the only date I've ever needed or wanted to rescue. Helen's pulse scrambled at his words and the intensity gleaming in his blue eyes. If any man had ever looked at her like that, she couldn't recall it. She'd invited him up to give him some TLC after his heroics, but now she didn't quite know what to do with herself. The first aid kit is in the bathroom. She stepped back, regretting every inch of space between them as she retreated. Give me a sec. Her hands shaky and her body primed for more than first aid. She fumbled with the cabinet and pinched her hand in the door as she tried to close it. She braced her hands on the countertop as she collected herself. She wasn't afraid of Alex as much as what she wanted from him. In the months after PT, she'd tucked the memory of him into a mental box of what might have been, if not for the lousy timing. Seeing him in action tonight, so competent and sure, yet not at all rude or cocky about his skills, well, that was an eye-opener. Alex was shattering her preconceived notions about Special Forces soldiers being all tough guy talk and daring do. Helen, he stood in the doorway, concern stamped on his chiseled features. I can go, or wait while you call a friend, if that's what you want. No, she didn't want him to go. Ian had caused enough disruptions for one night. Please stay. Getting her act together and moving past this would be easier with something tangible to focus on. She gestured him closer and washed and dried his battered knuckles, experiencing a fresh wave of intimacy in the nurturing gesture. At his insistence, she sat on the edge of the bathtub so he could treat her knee in kind. His hands were firm but gentle as he cared for her. It was impossible to forget that he'd invited her to ask for what she needed and wanted. Was it fair to give a voice to the desire simmering in her blood? Desire she knew only he could satisfy. She just decided to ask him to kiss her senseless when his cell phone hummed on the surface of the counter. He scowled at the screen and stepped into the hall to take the call. Gadsden. Saved by the bell, she thought cleaning up. It was an important reminder that getting involved with Alex wasn't smart. A woman couldn't rely on a man who was on call 24/7. She walked back out to the living room and found him by the sliding glass door, glaring down at the parking lot 3 stories below. What is it? She asked in a whisper when he glanced her way. The cops lost Ian, what Helen demanded. Her brow furrowed as if he was speaking a language she didn't understand. How did you find out? I asked a friend at the precinct to keep tabs on him, Alex said quickly. She folded her arms over her chest. You think he'll come back? I wouldn't put it past him, Alex admitted. Somehow he escaped during processing. The police are canvassing the area and will keep a patrol unit nearby. He held up his phone. I'm calling in a buddy to stand watch outside so you can rest. You've been through enough for one night. Another favor. For you, I'd call in all of them. He'd shocked her himself, too, but he was too tired to be subtle. As off-script as this date had gone, he knew he wasn't giving up on spending time with her. He sent the text message and waited for the affirmative reply. We can keep you safe until they nab him. He braced for the argument. I'll take the couch or the floor, but I'm not leaving you here alone. Her eyes went wide in her pale face, and he wanted to kick the jerk in the teeth. She shouldn't have to live in fear, ever. You really don't have to do that. I want to. No woman deserved the physical and emotional abuse her ex had doled out, especially not the woman he loved. Whoa. Just thinking it felt like too much too soon, though it didn't feel wrong. What is it? She crossed the room and slid her arms around his waist. You look like you've seen a ghost. He ran his hands through her hair. He stopped shy of stealing a kiss. No ghosts, but maybe a glimpse of the future. He smiled, enjoying the view of her stunning face. I'm good. He'd be better if she'd let him kiss her. Just point me to the pillows, and she cut him off her arms, winding around his neck. Her body a warm, supple press to his, as she drew his face close for a kiss. He indulged them both, gliding a hand up and down her spine. The soothing motion did nothing to take his mind off of all of the parts of her he wanted to explore. Alex. She looked up and her lips were so close, so tempting, and still. He held back, determined to keep his word to her. She deserved that, and so much more. Ask me. Whatever you want, it's yours. If he had to go out and slay a dragon, he would. It was increasingly clear she didn't expect him to stay past tonight. If tonight was all she'd give him, he'd take it, if she asked. Tomorrow, he could build on it and start convincing her to keep him forever. Kiss me again, Alex, please. Despite the rush of blood pounding in his ears, he heard the desire and need loud and clear. You got it, she gasped as he tugged her flush against him, fitting them like two puzzle pieces perfectly matched. Thoughts fled as his mouth met hers in a hot, firm kiss. She caught his shoulders for balance as he changed the angle, and his tongue stroked hers, tantalizing and teasing. Desire flashed over her skin like heat lightning, and she reached for more. For him. For all those searing moments in her fantasies she'd never expected to enjoy in real life. Alex, in reality, eclipsed those flimsy daydreams. Oh, please don't stop, she begged, letting her head fall back to give him better access to all the parts of her longing for his touch. A small, irritating voice warned her she was reacting to circumstances, and she shushed it, focused on the sound of her rushing pulse, and his low voice murmuring her name as he nibbled the shell of her ear. She tugged his shirt from his waistband and moaned at the feel of his hot, supple skin over those hard, honed muscles. She ran her hands up over his ribs, his pecs, then shoved the clothing up and over his head. Then she stared. Her breath stalled out. He was beyond her wildest imagination, masculine beauty and strength. His skin marked here and there with the scars of his work. I want you, Helen, he whispered against her cheek, if you'll have me. The rough edge in his voice gave her a burst of confidence she hadn't felt in ages. His words made her heart ache for the one thing he couldn't give forever. Regardless, she was seizing this moment, trusting him, and this blazing connection they shared to carry her through when he inevitably returned to a career that would call him away. I'll have you, Alex. She wouldn't deny herself or him. She'd hardly said the words before his hands were on her, feathering up from her shoulders, fingers spearing into her hair as he cupped her face for a kiss. Which way to the bedroom? She laughed as he boosted her into his arms and carried her down the short hallway. She flicked on the bedside lamp, wanting a clear memory of every moment. He stripped away her clothing, worshiping her body with a tenderness that added fuel to the hot demands blazing through her system. With his mouth and hands, he teased her until she bowed up, calling his name as she soared over the delicious peak. He rose up and slid deep inside, filling her oh so slowly. She clutched his shoulders, wrapped her legs around his lean hips, drawing him deeper still as they found the perfect pace. This time, when the pleasure overwhelmed her, he joined her, and they rode out the storm together. Spent, he tucked her close, his body spooned around hers, his arm over her waist. She'd never felt so cherished or protected. She knew he couldn't stay, that this couldn't be real beyond tonight, and yet nothing in her life had felt as true or lasting as Alex did right now. Drifting in the happiness she wanted only to linger in this safe spot, half a step removed from the real world forever. If only life could be that simple. As promised, Alex stayed through the night, dozing more than sleeping, too stunned and delighted with the lovely warmth of Helen curled up beside him. He understood now why she'd turned him down flat when they were in PT, understood why she'd been so resistant to his attempts to flirt and coax a smile out of her. For that alone, he wanted to tear her ex limb from limb. She sighed in her sleep, turning into him, her hand sliding over his chest. His heart kicked as if it was trying to leap from his chest into her palm. He was lost, and every minute he spent with her only confirmed she was the right woman for him. Today, he would start showing her he was the right man for her. Yes, his career would mean times apart from her when he deployed, but he wanted to come home to Helen. He wanted to go out and do his job, knowing his heart was safe in her care. The first step was making sure she'd be safe in his required absences, that her ex wouldn't find a way to hassle her again. Sure, the community would keep an eye on her, but a man with such disregard for a restraining order was trouble. There had to be a way to get this guy out of her life. As the first glow of sunrise filtered through the curtains, Alex threaded his fingers through the silk of her hair, his mind working through solutions. "Good morning," she said, stretching languidly. He claimed her mouth helpless against the urge to wish away any worries that might have carried over from last night. He didn't blame her for assuming they could only have this brief, amazing interlude. That was the rep the Special Forces teams had in the court of public opinion. "Morning, beautiful." He pulled her on top of him so he could fill his hands with more of her. "What should we do today?" She frowned a little, her fingers tracing the whiskers along his jaw. "You mentioned tennis. Were you serious?" He grinned. "I cleared my schedule through tomorrow, hoping you'd be willing to spend more time with me." "Why?" Why power of positive thinking? It had to be too soon to tell her he loved her. I believed we'd hit it off. Plus, the additional concern of her ex on the loose. "We did," she agreed, a sparkle in her eye as her cheeks went pink. "It wasn't just the unexpected excitement. My unit should get a new publicist." He pressed her hand to his racing heart. "You are all the excitement I need." She leaned close and kissed him, and he was dreaming of a hearty breakfast once he was done feasting on the passionate woman in his arms. A shrill sound of a car alarm in the parking lot jerked them both out of the moment. His cell phone chimed with a text message almost at the same time. Her ex was back for more. "Stay here," he said, rolling out of bed and then yanking on his jeans. He moved toward the window and peered through the curtain. "It's him," he said, more than a little aggravated. "What can I do?" she asked, rooting through her closet for clothes. "Call the police." As Alex pulled his shirt over his head and hurried out, Helen called the police and reported Ian's return, managing not to voice her irritation that the police had lost him last night. What would it take for her ex to believe she was done with him? She knew Alex hadn't arranged the blind date for the sake of forcing Ian out of her life. But whatever the future held, she would forever be grateful he hadn't left her to deal with Ian's violent harassment alone. Assured the police were on the way, she crept toward the window, too curious not to watch how Alex and his friend handled this. She'd done no more than touch the curtain to peer outside when the window burst, the echo of a gunshot ringing in her ears, underscored by the oddly delicate sound of shattering glass tinkling all around her. Helen Ian's voice carried up to her from the parking lot. Staying low, she heard Alex confront Ian as she crept out of the bedroom. She dialed the police again as she bolted out of the apartment and downstairs. Outside, she fought a surge of panic when she saw Ian held Alex and his friend Matt at gunpoint. Not the pistol of last night today, he was using an assault rifle. Where had he found that? Didn't matter. If Alex got hurt trying to protect her, she'd never forgive herself. "Ian," she called out, "you missed!" Drawing his attention, she gave Alex and Matt the opening they needed. They rushed him, disarmed him, and subdued him in short order with well-aimed strikes. The police arrived, an ambulance rolling right behind them to clean up the mess. They checked over Alex, Matt, and Helen for injuries, but only Ian needed treatment worthy of transport. When the authorities were gone, the morning suddenly felt too quiet. "Should I stay?" Alex asked. She couldn't get her thoughts organized enough to reply.
I'll go,
He said.
but I don't want you here alone. Can you call someone?
She stared at her phone, unable to work up the enthusiasm for calling her mom or a friend. Of course, she could count on her friends and family. The issue was she only wanted Alex. How ridiculous and unfair of her to make such a demand of him. Somehow, in broad daylight, her mistakes and weaknesses felt 1,000 times worse than last night. She was a coward to lean on him this way to hold back all the words he deserved to hear. He'd gone from fantasy and acquaintance to valued friend to hero and lover overnight. Was it fair to tell him and dump more on his broad shoulders?
I'll go,
He repeated.
Matt can stay until someone else arrives.
No, I want you. There. She'd said it. Here or your place or Tahiti, I want to be wherever you are. Tahiti. She nodded, unable to look at him. She was that embarrassed by her outburst. He tipped up her chin.
Last night I thought of taking you to Tahiti.
You did. It was the first place I thought of where your ex couldn't follow. His lips brushed lightly over hers. Was that goodbye? And now she asked, unable to stifle the question. Now Alex echoed the question. Now I want to take you away more than ever. I have leave. I'll tap my savings account. Whatever it takes to have more time alone with you. Anything to keep her safe, although his plans went further than an island vacation. The police had assured them Ian would be held for at least a 48-hour psych evaluation and charged with assault weapons charges as well as violation of the restraining order and any other charges they could pile on. Unless she had to testify in court, she probably would never see the idiot again due to the mandatory prison time that would come after he got out of the hospital.
Tahiti seems a bit far for a man who's always on call,
She replied. Is that what held you back when I asked you out before my special forces commitment? That, and it was just too soon. She rolled the shoulder that her ex had injured. My confidence was too weak to deal with a man like you. I knew it wasn't the uniform, he said to himself. What?
Doesn't matter.
He reached out, hugged her close.
You are the most courageous woman I've met in PT or out.
To his satisfaction, she laughed, her arms circling his waist as she leaned in. Never forget it. She gazed up at the shattered bedroom window. And still, I don't know the first thing about window repair. Luckily, the maintenance crew here does. They walked up to her apartment, and he found a broom and dustpan to clean up the debris while she made the call. It was impossible to stand in her bedroom and not think about what they'd shared last night. How much more he wanted to share every day to come with her. Too soon or not, one of them would have to take the leap. After commenting on her courage, it was his turn to step up and take the chance. As he dumped another dustpan full of glass into the trash can, she walked in, and he knew he had to act now or risk losing everything important. Alex. He set aside the broom and took her hands in his. I love you, Helen. I've known you were special to me since the moment we met. I'll resign my current post today if that's what it takes to stay in your life. No. She cupped his face in her hands. You're perfect as you are, and I love you for it. Don't change anything for me. Say it again, please. I love you, Alex. His entire body sighed with contentment. Whether or not she asked, he would always do everything in his power to keep that wondrous smile on her face. What about Tahiti? I'll extend my leave for the rest of the month. How about Florida? She countered. And just for the weekend, I know a great resort with tennis courts and private beaches. He supposed Tahiti could wait. For a honeymoon. Will you wear a bikini in Florida? She grinned. Not on the tennis court. Laughing, he kissed her again, happier in this moment than he'd ever been in his life. The best part was knowing things would only get better with time.
The end.